Hi, my name is Jaclyn and I study military coups. For those who maybe aren't familiar, a military coup is when the military kicks out the sitting leader of a country and begins to govern themselves. Let me begin by giving 3 reasons why everyone in this room, as well as the international community, should care about these events. First, there have been about 3 dozen coup attempts in the last decade. They're not limited to a particular region or regime type, they happen everywhere. Second, about a quarter of all civil wars begin by way of coup attempt, and we know in the 21st century that civil wars have been the most deadly, the longest lasting, and the most common type of conflict. Third, a bit more optimistically, there are some countries that transition from dictatorship to democracy right after a coup attempt, although this seems to be the exception and not the rule. I'm interested in the relationship between protests and military coups. Scholars have already started to unpack this question, and they find a positive relationship between protests and coups. So all that means is that as the country experiences more protests, they also tend to experience more coups. However, the data we've used to answer this question historically has been very, very bad data. All we have is annual counts of protest events. And what we know is that protests can take on a number of different qualities, and these qualities are probably very important for predicting outcomes. So this is where my project comes in. I use very new and exciting geocoded data, which means that each protest event is associated with a specific latitude and longitude. And I test 2 new hypotheses. The first, I argue that protests that happen near the capital city of a country are more likely to spur a coup than protests happening in other regions of the country. The second is I argue that peaceful protests, this is a bit counterintuitive, are more likely to spur coups than violent protests. This is because peaceful protests are better able to recruit and they gain more international legitimacy than violent protests. I use computer modeling to test these expectations, and I find strong evidence that they are in fact right. Having protests near the capital doubles the likelihood of a coup, and having peaceful protests increases the likelihood 3-fold. In conclusion, if you want to affect change, where you stand matters.